life is God's gift to you. What you do with it is your gift back to God. Well, in a world where challenges are plentiful, it's easy for us to feel discouraged. Yet with enough guidance and support, most people can achieve more in life than they ever dreamed possible. Well, beyond your fears is everything you ever dreamed of. For the Dr. STEM Show, we'll give the voiceless a voice and the hopeless hope. And now, here she is, Dr. STEM.
Hello, before we start the show, I wanted to ask, have you heard of the Empowerment Academy that I just created? Well, if you haven't, this is a platform that has unlimited access that you will have to confidence programs, self-esteem programs, and success building programs, as well as mental health and mental wellness programs. Join today at www.drstemi.com. Now, let's get into the show. Hello and welcome to another segment of the Dr. STEM Show. I'm so excited. You know what this is all about. This season is about hope, encouragement, and empowerment. I have a young at heart fellow Zimbabwean who I can tell you I am so proud because the bio that I read and I'm going, whoa, you've done it all. And guess what she said to me? I've tried it all. This is a season of trying it all. And there's no other person that can tell you about trying and the benefits of trying than Chenai Kadungure, who's my guest today. Welcome to the show, Chenai.
Thank you, Doc. I'm happy to be here.
Great. And she comes all the way from Toronto, Canada. We're going international. Not that we haven't been going international, but I don't think we've been in Canada. So guys, I'm ready to rock and roll with Chenai, who is in Canada. Let me tell you a little bit about Chenai. She's a fellow Zimbabwean, as I said, very versatile young lady. She's accomplished and still going. She was an Interact member. Her accolades includes being an Interact member, an integral part of resolving conflicts around xenophobia, which happened in South Africa. Many of us read about it, and she was, involved in making sure that, people got some peace into resolving those conflicts. She's a researcher. She is in leadership development, and she has worked with many nonprofit organizations. She calls herself, or maybe sees herself, as a soldier for peace. So I'm excited to hear all of this work that she has been doing. And when I asked Chenai to say, Chenai, what do you want to talk about when we get to the Dr. STEM Show? She gave me this topic, imposter syndrome. And I'm going, huh? Why would somebody choose that topic? But you know what? I love your bravery, the way that you were brave enough to say, you know what? I'm going to go in front of the world and talk about imposter syndrome. So I'm excited as much as the audience to hear about all this. But we're going to start with maybe knowing about you being a soldier of peace. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, they always say it's a bit of an oxymoron of a phrase, but I feel most people are living this in the now. So just as a backstory, most of the people living right now have twice the amount of cortisol in their system than a World War II soldier had. Right? So we live in stressful times, which means living in itself is warfare. And so for me, I feel like you can't have peace without some kind of actions against some of the negative warfare. And that's why I say soldier for peace. People don't just get to a point of Zen. You don't just get to a point of acceptance without that help. And I feel like people like myself and very, very qualified people like Dr. STEM are necessary for this. And I just feel like the world needs to have that as a focus.
It's interesting you're saying that, right? Because then us in mental health, we also have realized that, my phone has never rang the way that it's ringing right now, because you're right. A lot of people are mentally exhausted. The stress levels are very high. They don't know where I mean, this is all going to end and when it's going to end or what to do next. So you're right. It is a time that I think we talk more about self-care and more about some resolutions of how to foster peace in your life. So imposter syndrome. Okay, I mean, even as in mental health, I mean, it's like, I mean, it takes a lot for me to really hear it and really diagnose it. But for you to just come out, I'm like, okay, I want to hear about this one. Talk to me about imposter syndrome.
So before I went to North Carolina for a peace fellowship, in the application process, someone had actually told me already that, you're going to go through a phase where you've been a big fish in a small pond and you're going to go somewhere. You're going to be so overwhelmed by how small and seemingly insignificant you are in terms of the people in the room. And, I laughed that off the first time I heard it. But then true to form, when I got there, I was doing a peace fellowship with people who wrote policies for their governments, people who, presidents were getting advice from these people. And I looked at myself and I thought, what am I even doing here? And so I think a lot of people, and especially women, go through that feeling where you're in a room and you're like, what am I doing here? Do I have anything to give? Do I have any knowledge? And you get surprised time and time again that just being yourself, there's wisdom in that. No one knows your life better than you, and your own life has just so much content. So it's a daily battle. I can safely say I think a lot of my burnout, because I'm recovering from burnout now, was attributed to that, the exhaustion of just feeling like, I need to work. I think, imposter syndrome is more rife than we know, but if you name it and you call it out, then you know what to banish.
You're right. It's interesting because even the people that, as you said, are qualified to do the work, there is somebody else that is more qualified than me and somebody else that is more qualified than them. But the imposter syndrome comes to a place where you start comparing yourself with those around you or those that are doing the same work that you are doing. Especially I'm finding it with women that have great ideas of businesses that they want to do, but then they look at the next person and said, oh, I don't think my earrings are as good looking as those ones, or I don't think what I want to sell people will buy into it, which in other words I also call it self-sabotaging yourself when you start thinking in that way. Have you thought about it in that sense as well, of self-sabotage? I see you nodding your head. You've thought about it too, right?
Definitely. I mean, it's that thing where it's if you tell yourself you can't do it, then you won't, right? So however you view the situation is going to turn out, that's how it will be. So I think you become a self-fulfilling prophecy if you let it take over. So I think sometimes it's always so important to know your why. As long as you are holding on to your why, you don't care about the who or the what and all the other things.
Oh, you just opened up to big can of worms right there. What is your why?
Well, my why, I always say, it's hard when you're trying to come up with a personal elevator pitch, but I've always felt like mine is seeing people live the best life available to them. I feel so many people are just living what they settled for, what they think they deserve, all these different other things that are based on some lie, or as my burnout specialist used to call it, malware in their programming. So you take that lie and then it becomes your reality. So I believe in any space that I am, whether I'm working for nonprofits, whether I'm doing any motivational speaking, whether I'm doing leadership development, my common message is always that I always start with what lie has been holding you back up until this point.
That's powerful. That's powerful. So you do leadership trainings as well as motivational speaking? Okay. What is
occasionally?
Oh, okay, occasionally. So in your leadership trainings, what are some of the topics that you're training leaders in?
Well, it's a mixture of things like psychometrics over tools like the MBTI, just basic understandings of important things that people need in their workplaces or even for their businesses to thrive. When I was in the Hope Factory in South Africa, a lot of that work involved trying to understand what limited people before, as we were talking about, saying, you've gotten your business to this level. What is the reason you haven't done thing X or haven't partnered with organization X? And usually when you start peeling the layers on that, you start getting to the root of some of those ideas that, I'm from Khayelitsha, I'm from a high density suburb. Like, I shouldn't expect a Fortune 500 company. And so just reminding people that, where you start from is not where you belong. It's just where you start from. So that usually is a lot of the work that we do. We also then look at things like people's conflict styles, like when things are difficult, what are they more likely to do? What type of decisions are they more likely to make? So if people feel equipped, that they're in a supportive space, they tend to just make better decisions as well. So sometimes it's just small fixes that make such a huge difference in the organizations.
So, in you helping others become, better leaders, if we may say it that way, or good leaders, you're saying you use the MBTI, testing, the assessment. That's an assessment, right?
Yeah. So it's telling you what the dominant fundamental things a person needs to thrive in a in workplace, sometimes even in social situations. If someone is an introverted leader, a lot of times they then need, sort of like buffers. So I'm not going to be able to do some of the company networking. I need to make sure I recruit for that. Some of those gaps that come out of that. And the beauty of those kinds of systems is they don't say you need to be any one way. They're saying, we're all like a tapestry, almost like a rainbow. So if you're saying I'm a person, we need everybody, but we need to know where the gaps are that, this isn't my space. I'm going to need help with that, or I'm going to need resources for that. So those are some of the things I used to work with entrepreneurs on.
Oh, so you don't administer the MBTI anymore?
No, I mean, I never ever became certified to necessarily train it. It was just a tool we'd use because anyone can take the test and, sort of like talk a person through what the test does. So even when I was at Center for Faculty Excellence at UNC, same kind of thing, the director of leadership, she'd say, what kind of, resources can we give faculty for X issue? Or, we have incoming faculty. These will be some of their concerns. What are the resources we can give them to allow them to feel a bit more comfortable in their role? So a lot of it is, I guess, analysis as well, saying, what's the current situation and where are the gaps?
Yeah, right. And what I like about I'm a certified administrator of the MBTI, and what I like about it is you said it's a rainbow. We have all the qualities of I mean all personalities per se, but then sometimes too when whether you're an introvert or extrovert, when to bring out the extrovert qualities in you in what environments, to the situations, and then you also know when to bring out the introvert qualities in you. So that's why I always like and encourage people to take some of those tests, because it helps you understand what qualities you possess and where you can also expand and bring out what's in you that you probably were not aware of. So that's really good. That's really good. So diverting a little bit from the personality test, pain is a gift. And I was wondering if you have experienced pain in your life, and again, how you use that to encourage and inspire others.
Growing up when I was younger, I'm a Christian woman, and I had told God, of the people that are most important for me in my life, it's my father and my grandmother. And for my father specifically, it's because he had a role as an affirming spirit. He was such a defining person in terms of, my self-esteem, my trust in my capabilities and in who I was. He was someone who'd always remind me who I was. He was playing the role of a mentor. At the time, I didn't have a word for it, but I just knew that, this relationship was so important. But then within months of asking God for that, to say, protect these people, they both passed away. And so for me, the amount of pain then was so great. I mean, definitely God assisted me through it. I felt like there was some fortitude there. But I sort of just went through life almost apathetic about a lot of things. And I didn't know at the time that I'd been holding myself back in some ways. So it was only later I went to university, and I went to a church camp, and someone said, you know, there are people in this room that I believe they're not necessarily an orphan, but they're moving around with an orphan spirit. They've lost someone, and you know, they still sort of don't understand why they lost that person. They still have a relationship with God and everything, and they're just going, but there are things they've given up as a result of that. And then the person said, I just want to let you know that, you know, God didn't take that person from you so that you can be without, but he wanted to have you, that person in your life, so that you understand just a millionth of what his love feels like. You know, just how much he loves you, how much he cares about you, everything you loved about those people, that's a millionth of what God has for you. And it was just so releasing, you know, for me. So that reality allowed me not only to have a healthier relationship with God, but also with myself and everyone else around me, because in my head, the thing that gave me a good self-esteem was gone. And so that was the pain. But it ended up being a gift in having a stronger relationship with God, even better relationship with my parents and siblings, and also a sense that, you know, I felt so encouraged. I felt other people needed to be encouraged. So it awoke something in me. So it's a personal pain, but it also brought in purpose and so many other things. So I feel pain always acts like that. It's never just this stimulus that just goes unanswered.
That's really well said. You know, sorry about your loss. And it's interesting because then, you know, that you speak about, you know, your loss, because with this pandemic, a lot of people are really struggling with loss. I know we're talking about moving on to the new normal and everything, but there are many, many that have lost loved ones and are struggling with this sudden loss that they had, and, you know, not knowing how to even embrace it or to move on with it. So when you're talking about grief, you know, as well, do you have, in addition to what you said, I mean, any encouragement that you can give those that the pain theirs is still raw? It has happened.
I mean, I definitely believe that there is no catharsis in the why. I think the thing with grief is you think so much about everything that was stolen, the potential things that person could have done in your life, in their life. That's always the largest sort of lack that we feel in loss. But there is just so much redemption and understanding that I personally don't believe that when people die, they go nowhere. You know, I have a faith that says they're cheering us on. We have a sense of what they'd say in a situation, and they're comforting us. And I always also tell myself, how would that person want to know that you lived? You have the gift of life that they've lost. How then are you using what they didn't have? You're a person full of potential. Are you living a life that if you died tomorrow, you'd be satisfied with the result? So I think there's something so important in making sure that death can still bring life.
You're right. You're right. Thank you for that. It's such an individual journey when it comes to grief and dealing with grief as well. So even though you'll be listening to what we're saying today, I want to also encourage all of you to really make it a personal journey on how you will deal with the grief and loss that you might be going through at this time, even if it's not a loved one that has died. But I think all of us have also lost the life that we had, and we're going to have to grieve for that life as well. So many people are going through different types of grief as well, of losing, you know, what was, and going into this so-called new normal. And one of the things that I find that has been helpful is to find the strength and pray for the strength to be able to pick up and look out the window just to see a little bit of light, just to breathe a little bit of fresh air. Because what happens is when we go through grief and we go through difficult times and we stand in the dark and we don't allow the light to come in, that's when it's easy to cross over that taboo word of mental health, and then we get into depression and anxiety, that sometimes that hole to come out of that is deeper, because now you're combining what Chenai has been talking about, the imposter syndrome. You're combining that loss, grief and loss that probably hasn't been resolved. And then now you are in this state where nothing is working and you're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So as much as it's difficult, I want to encourage people to please find the courage to look out, to walk out and see the light, or even open the windows and just let the light in a little bit at a time, until you open up your heart to discover and recognize what it is that you can do to now live your best life, or to create that best life that you have. And that leads me into the next thing that is my love of talking about finding your purpose. Talk to me. How does one find their purpose according to your findings, your studies, and what you've realized, Chenai?
Well, it's a mixture of things. One of the things I've heard is think about what makes you angry. This thing that gives you this emotional reaction, whether it's because you hate it so much or because you love it so much, somewhere in there is your purpose. So you'll find people who are passionate about injustice will tend to go into the roots of either human rights law, or they become mediators, or they do. People who feel like something's taken a situation away from them. I have friends who have gone in and worked in maternal health because the mother, what do we call that? When you die during childbirth, those kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. She had a personal experience with that, and that's where she's found her purpose. So there's always something, there's nothing that happens to us for no reason. And so I believe that, all our experiences, you piece them together and you look at the thread. It took a while for me to even think of the link between peace in my life. But it's later onwards that I started piecing things together and saying, why did I do that? Why did I get attracted to that role? Why did I do that? You start getting into a sense of, what you were born to do. I think for us as African people, it's a little bit harder because, we have a culture where from when you're a child, people are kind of telling you what they'd like for you to be doing. And it gets very easy to start living someone else's life. But what you care about will animate you, and that'll be the thing that gets you up in the morning.
I've never heard it say that way. Okay, you live and learn. I haven't heard it say that way. And when I tell people, I'm trying to push them into seeing the things that when they do it, it's effortless. But it's so exciting that, you just do it. I do counseling, and it's really effortless to just be there and listen to someone and really have a conversation where somebody says, it just feels good to have had talk to you today. I feel better. And I'm thinking, I don't feel like I worked or anything, but I felt the presence of just being there, being exciting to do that. So I tell people that, find that something that makes you excited, that makes you happy. But your take that you just shared with us today, that's different. I like that. And it's true. It's true. You say, you might hate something the way that it is so bad that you decide to be an advocate, or it just draws you into making differences and doing that very thing so that you can change, you can make a change and make a difference. And that becomes your passion and your calling because of that fire. That's the pain.
That's a gift for some people, right? They went through something. They now have the survival manual for it. They need to share it with other people. I don't think anything that happens to us is just about us. There's always a larger community that's going to benefit.
You're right. So as a result, like some people are trying to find something to do. Listen to what Chenai is telling you. I'm telling you, because now you're wondering, what business can I do and what can I start doing this time? When you look back from the time that we started all this, pandemic and end of February, March, I think we started all this. What is it that you have struggled with the most that you can now help other people to get over or to resolve or to deal with that particular thing that you did? That's what, could be the fire under you and could be a passion for you. I like that. I like that. So then one other thing that you say is healed people heal other people. Expand on that for us.
Similar to what I talked about before, I think a lot of us have had hurts of different kinds in our life, but we don't necessarily have a culture where we talk about that hurt. And a lot of times we only believe we should talk about a hurt if, you know, there's an immediate solution. But I feel that if you've gone through an experience and you've recovered from it, the steps of how you recovered from it are actually the necessary key for someone else. And it's similar to what I always say about mentorship, right? I can help someone not make the mistakes that I made. So it's not necessarily that someone has to go through the same mistakes. You know, if I ran a business and I made mistakes in business, I have expertise on business because I want you to not make the mistakes I made. So I feel like even the negative things that are happening in our lives, when we get through them, we now have a way to help other people get through them. And that's what I believe is essentially healing. And I think a lot more people are healers than they realize. But because they think maybe I should be a doctor or something else that's very specific, they might miss the mark. You don't have to go to med school. You might actually just need to like do life coaching. You might just need to, I don't know, have a radio show where you're talking about these things. So those are the kind of ways that I feel like heal people definitely heal people.
Yeah, you're very right. I was wondering, you know, when I was looking at it, it's like heal people, I mean, healed people heal people. But you're right. It's almost like experience is the best teacher, where when you have experienced something, then that's you now have one upper hand over somebody who has never gone through that. So that when you work with people that have gone through a similar situation, now you have experience because you have already gone through it. So now you can become a teacher, a life coach, or a coach for that person to be able to overcome it.
You have a language for it. But actually, when I had made up the saying, it's because of the phrase hurt people.
Yep.
You know, so, and if you think of even where that phrase is coming from, it's saying that we are projecting something on everyone we meet all the time. So if you are functioning from a place of hurt, it's very hard for you to then produce some good things. So once you've actually gotten over some hurts, then you can actually help other people heal.
You're right. I love this. When I got emails from you, right? This Woodrow Wilson quote that's in there, I'm like, I'm going to ask her about it. Let me read you what that quote says. It says, "You are not here merely to make a living. You are here in order to enable the world to live more amply with greater vision, with a finer spirit of hope and achievement. You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand." Woodrow Wilson. When did you start having this, and what does this quote mean for you?
Oh, I just felt like it just perfectly summarized what gets me up in the morning, and it's exactly that. I believe anything that we do that leads to hope for the world is worth so much. And no matter what you go through, no matter how you struggle, knowing that the end result is hope for the world is something that just, it allows you to give your all. I think the world just needs so much more hope. We function so much from a point of darkness, and I believe that all of us are here to be light. And so for me, that's what that quote's about, to say, you know, even if I'm doing something for work or whatever, I will work as if unto the Lord, because I know that I am part of his rescue plan for the world. I think we all are. So it's thinking about that, you know, we can't just exist. I feel like a lot of people just become consumers, but we need to be contributors of what we do in the world.
Ooh, I like that. Don't just be a consumer, be a contributor. This is powerful, very poignant. And the next question that I have for you reminds me, I'm a John Maxwell trainer and coach. Everything rises and falls on leadership, you know, and that's Dr. Maxwell to the T. So how is this true in your life?
You know what? I feel to be a lifelong learner is to be a good leader. I think we have had the authoritarian understanding of leadership for so long when it's just about a position or a title, but to me, it's about influence. And if you're trying to be a positive influence on the world, you need to also be a positive influence on yourself. And I think that is probably the hardest part. Leading yourself is definitely the hardest thing. And that's why for me, I truly believe everything rises and falls in leadership, that even if it's a situation in your life and it's just about you, it's still a leadership issue.
You're right, and I'm with you where you have to self-lead before you can lead others. And as Chenai has said, I want to ask you, do you do individual leadership coaching, or you just do trainings for the organizations?
Well, so it's a mixture of mentorship and training depending on the situations. So currently it's been more of almost like consulting with people, helping them with specific problems. Yeah, so it does feel sometimes like being like a business therapist for people.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what it is. So I just want to make sure that people can find you, because then if you want to know more about leadership and also leadership influence, then Chenai found me on LinkedIn. You can find her on LinkedIn, and I will have all the links for her right underneath this show. So before we start the show, do you have any parting words that you want to leave with the audience?
Oh, yes, always.
Yeah.
I love that you have the Serenity Prayer behind you, because that is something that I think is such an important tool for peace. They use it even when, in 12 steps programs for a reason. I think a lot of people who do the 12-step program are not necessarily Christian, but there is just such an understanding that the world will overwhelm you if you allow it to define you. You really need to fight tooth and nail for that light inside you, and I also believe that, I was even posting about it recently, that, we all want breakthroughs, but we're all scared of breaking. And I am saying the point after you break, a lot of times is when there's the breakthrough. So your breakthrough comes through breaking. Don't be afraid to break. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to tell friends and family you need help. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I've been doing this thing for 10 years and I have no clue what I'm doing right now. I think right at the beginning of that humility is actually where you see like proper fruit of things in your life. So that was just my last thought.
Thank you so much. You're very well versed about leadership, and I'm very excited about that. So I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to get to know who Ms. Chenai Kadungure is, and I hope people will be reaching out to you, and may your work continue to go further and further as a peace ambassador, as well as a leadership, role model that you are, mentor, and you need to be a coach, leadership coach. So I'm going to end with my mentor. As I said, I'm a leadership coach, and John Maxwell. I'm a John Maxwell, trainee. I was trained under Dr. John Maxwell. He says leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. You have that ability, my dear sister. So I want to thank you for coming to the show again.
Thank you so much. And thank you for responding to your call. If you never did that, we wouldn't be here. There are conversations the world is having just because you did that. So I'm proud of you too.
Appreciate you. Thank you everyone for watching the Dr. Stem Show. I had fun talking to my fellow sister Chenai Kadungure, who is from Zimbabwe and now residing in Canada. I will have all her links at the bottom of this show. Until next time, be encouraged.
You just heard from Dr. Stem. She is opening up an opportunity for you to have unlimited access to Empowerment Hub, filled with life success resources to help you deal with stress, communication, confidence issues, career decisions, business success tips, and more. So now, the only question left is, are you ready? Are you ready to tackle that one thing preventing you from achieving your highest potential? to achieve that one goal you've been chasing, to turn your dreams into reality, to finally keep that promise you've been making to yourself. Let Dr. STEM's programs be your guide to feeling more confident and fearless. Are you ready to become a Premier member for only $27 a month? That's less than a coaching session. Get unlimited access to Dr. STEM's empowerment courses, ebooks, free webinars, and more. Become a member today for only $27 a month.